This time I'll call the meeting of the Waxahachie and Bennett School District Board of Trustees to order. Please let the record show that all 7 trustees are in attendance tonight. This meeting has been duly called and the notice of the meeting has duly posted for time and matter required by law. At this time, I will ask Mr. McCutcheon to lead us in our invocation, followed by our pledges by Mr. Calden.
Okay, let's pray. Lord, we come before you tonight just thanking you for the WISD and all of the many blessings you bestowed upon us. Thank you for the staff, the teachers, and the administration who work tirelessly to ensure that our students get the best possible education that they can get. Please be with the board tonight as we make decisions, guide us, just stay in our hearts and help us to have your Son in mind in everything that we do. Please be with us as we move forward this week, and just bless us every way you can. And as always, these things are asked in your Son's holy name. Amen. Amen.
Ms. Bridges, recognitions.
Good evening, board. First of all, I want to just make sure everyone in the room is aware that we are being live streamed. Our technology team has set up, we have 2 cameras now, so if you want to watch at home ever, you can see the board and the person talking here. So we are super, super excited to have that advanced technology here in our boardroom. This evening, we have 2 recognitions. We're going to start with Mr. Caleb High. Caleb finished this year 2nd in state in powerlifting among all 5A and 6A schools in Texas. In his senior year, in his senior year, Caleb became Waxahachie's strongest athlete in school history, and his accomplishments include 4-year letterman, 4-year regional qualifier, 2-time regional champion, 3-time state qualifier, 2018 academic all-state, 2018 state runner-up, holder of 3 school records, including 670-pound squat, 640-pound deadlift, and his best lifting total, 1,695 pounds. And on a personal note, I know that we are all going to miss Caleb so much when he moves on to Mary Hardin Baylor next year, but we hope he'll come back and visit us. He's a great kid. We are proud that he is a Waxahachie Indian.
And Miss Bridges, we also want to recognize his coach who's with him tonight, Rocky Robinson. Rocky, why don't you come get in the picture?
Mr. Robinson forgot to include himself in that write-up that he sent me, so Mr. Robinson, you'll need to do that. Congratulations, Caleb. I'll text it to you. Next, I'm going to invite Jennifer Burns and Lisa Mott to come up and recognize our LEAP Academy participants for this year.
Good evening, board. We are here tonight to honor our LEAP Academy participants, and so we'll call them up. This is our academy that we help inspiring young leaders to go from positions in the classroom into positions of leadership within the district, whether it be the curriculum department or as assistant principals and principals. We're hoping someday to grow them even beyond the campus level as well. So we meet several times through the course of the spring semester. We have panels of current administrators, both district level and campus level, that come in and meet with our Leapsters, and we conclude it with a mock interview, put them in the hot seat for about an hour and give them lots of great feedback, so hopefully they'll be successful when they go out and interview for that first position on the next level. So and thank you to Ms. Burns over here. She is my cohort in our Elite Academy. And also thank you to all of our administrators in the room who came and helped out. Many of them did serve on our panels. All right, so our honorees this year, we have Tracy Gilby. Christy Fewen. Haley Osborne. Brandy Demkowski. And Ben Bridges.
Board, that concludes our recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Bridges.
It's my understanding there's no one signed up for open forum? Okay. Item number 3 is consent agenda. Trustees, at this time, letter H has been removed for consideration. So we were considering A through G and then also I. We can take these as a group. We can take them individually, or if you want to remove one and talk about it, whatever you guys desire. Is there any discussion? At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Autry, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through G, as well as I.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, number 4, budget and finance. Mr. Calden.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I decided to come up with a new and inventive way of putting all these items together, and it's probably going to be a massive flop, but we'll try it this one time. And if feedback's no good, we'll do something different next time. Item number 1, so Chapter 41 designation. We received a letter dated May 1st from TEA that we are going to be a Chapter 41 school next year. Brief overview, there are 2 funding mechanisms within the state. Every district starts out as a Chapter 42. Chapter 42 simply is the funding chapter of the state education code that talks about how we get state funds based on students in attendance. When your wealth gets above a certain level, and there's 3 different levels, but when your wealth gets above any one of those 3 levels, you're identified as a Chapter 41 school, also known as Robin Hood. So we, next year, our taxable property values will exceed the certain level based on our average daily student attendance, so we will be classified as a Chapter 41 school. We are a Chapter 41 school this year with anticipated payments back to TEA of $0. Next year, the anticipated payment will be somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 to TEA. For comparison, we get about $29.5 million from TEA based on student attendance. So drop in the bucket, but just to let you know that our expected Chapter 41 payments to the state are going to increase next year from 0 this year. The state, in the letter that they sent us, anticipated about $330,000 to $350,000 on these Chapter 41 payments. The state does not build in near the estimated attendance that we do. So that's going to be where you're going to see that discrepancy in numbers if you're going back and looking at what the state anticipates our payments to be. When you are a Chapter 41 district, you have 5 options to reduce your wealth. You can consolidate with another district, not an overly popular move. You can detach property, again, not an overly popular move. Almost every district in the state does either option 3 or option 4. Option 3 is you can buy attendance credits from the state. essentially what this is you give the state some of that money back that you earn under Chapter 42 funding. Option number 4, you can contract with another district to educate some of their students. So we could come up with an agreement and take some students from Avalon ISD and educate them up here. Essentially the same effect as buying attendance credits from the state. It's just in number 4, you know what district you're buying them from, and number 3, you have no idea what district you're buying them from. You're buying them from the state. Number 5, you can consolidate tax bases with another district. Again, not a very popular move. All of these, the consolidate, the detach, and the consolidate tax bases are permanent moves. So if the district ever were to leave 41 status and go back to 42, you don't get that property back. You don't get your independence back if you consolidate with another district. And if you do item 2 or 5, you don't get your tax base back. Those are permanent bound moves going forward. All right, Chapter 41 again. Going forward, we're going to ask you over the next couple of meetings to delegate authority to the superintendent to execute an agreement for the purchase of attendance credits. This was the same move that we did last year. It is exercising option number 3 that was on that previous list, that we're going to buy attendance credits from the state. Going a little bit further, we're actually going to buy attendance credits and have it netted against, rephrase, my recommendation is that we buy attendance credits and have it netted against the revenues we're expected to earn from the state of Texas. Final authority rests with you. Before we do that, as an administrative time saver, would ask that you delegate that authority to the superintendent to execute that agreement, but we'll get to that at a future meeting. We will complete the intent form and send it to the state. There is an early adoption agreement credit. If we have all this done, tied up, and sent in by September 1, we actually will owe a little bit less than state calculations because we have executed all this in a timely manner so that they can plan their payments and receipts around it as well. I know it's super quick. I know it's super quick. So what questions do you have about Chapter 41 status?
And just real quick, the anticipated payment to the state is less the amount we pay to the appraisal district for services?
So there are some offset agreements that go into the calculation of how much we owe back to the state. And yes, sir, as you mentioned, our payments to the appraisal district do come out of that. So our appraisal district payments next year will be about $450,000 based off the budget the appraisal district's working off of. So some of those payments, there's a calculator in the repayment formula that will give us some credit for those payments that we're paying to the appraisal district.
Any questions? Okay. Item number 2, consideration and approval for an external auditor.
We talked a little bit about the external audit engagement last time, but just to kind of recap what we talked about and kind of going forward, we are required by state law, it's Education Code 44.008, to conduct an external financial audit annually of the district. In addition to the independent auditor, or the auditor is required to be independent as defined by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, hold a valid license from the Texas State Board of Public Accountancy, and adhere to generally accepted auditing standards and generally accepted government auditing standards. The generally accepted auditing standards are established by the AICPA, and GAGAS, we love acronyms, are assigned by the U.S. Government Accountability Office. All financial audits are due to TEA 150 days from fiscal year end, which for us is January 28th. And TEA performs a desk review on all submissions and will send us a letter that they've performed said review and any comments that they deem appropriate for the contents of our audit once they've received it. So an external audit, what it is, it's evidence-based review of financial transactions and representations. So we prepare financial statements, give them to the auditor, and they're going to get documentation to support all of our numbers on our audit or financial statements. It's also an unlimited inspection of all transactions from all funds, and it's performed in accordance with established requirements, those from the state, and professional standards, those established outside of the state of Texas. An audit is not a rubber stamp of our practices, procedures, and financial statements. It's not a narrow scope of transactions only from certain funds, and it's not a mutually agreed upon set of tests designed to overlook inappropriate activities. As we talked previously, if you would like for us to do a limited scope engagement, we can do that. It's called an agreed upon procedures engagement, and that is where we can go in and dictate what some of the tests are and what funds we specifically want to look at. But for general purposes of an audit is all encompassing. It includes all funds that we have. So next steps tonight, we'll ask you for approval of the 2017-2018 audit engagement. The engagement partner will be a different partner in the firm this year. We are doing our own little version of auditor rotation within the firm to have a different individual overseeing the engagement. Field work will begin approximately in July for about a week or so, and then it'll continue in October once all the books are closed and journal entries made where necessary. Audit report should be delivered somewhere in the December to January timeframe. We'll get it to TEA before the 28th of January. That is one of those fast report requirements. And then for 18-19, we will publish a request for qualification, or an RFQ, for financial audit services somewhere in that January to February timeframe. That's about when most auditors are starting to look at setting up their audit engagements for the next year. And then we'll look for approval of an auditor for next year, for the 18-19 fiscal year, sorry, in the March-April timeframe. So just kind of give you a general idea going forward. So tonight, the recommendation from the administration would be to approve the audit engagement letter that's included in your packet for the 2017-2018 fiscal year audit.
Ryan, one thing,
Yes,
on
sir.
a limited engagement audit, in other words, if we were to decide to audit the 125, the bond, do you get a bid beforehand? Is that something they can bid? Give us a kind of an estimate on what something like that would cost?
So within state of Texas purchasing requirements, and audit services or any services from a CPA are professional services. We're not required to get a bid, but definitely if that's something the board chooses, we can definitely publish it and get responses from interested parties. Yes, sir.
My point is, it's not every day we do a $125 million bond, and, for public satisfaction and for, the administration to show that we're doing what we're supposed to do, it might be something we want to consider.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, discussion?
And I'll say separately to Mr. Rogers' point, we can go out, do an RFQ. Would you like to stay with the same firm? Would you like a different firm, an outside firm to look at it?
I just think we need to start the discussion. I know we're not, the bond hasn't been completed yet. Maybe if we have time, we can at least start the discussion on having that done.
At the completion of the bond project?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe our auditor is Hankins East Up.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
right?
Ton, say.
Deaton, Ton, and Say,
Yes, sir.
for the record.
And for the public's knowledge, we've been with them how many years?
I believe we started with them in the 03-04 fiscal year, so this would be the 14th engagement.
So just in the spirit of new faces and new blood, we're looking at maybe next year switching firms just to get a fresh set of eyes on the numbers and just so it's not the same people looking at it over and over again. Although he did say that there will be a different personnel conducting this audit from last time. So.
Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the external auditor for 2017-2018.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the external auditor for 2017-2018 as presented.
I have a motion by Dr. Langley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Schofield. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. All right, number 3, consideration of possible action to approve meal charge policy.
Okay, so meal charge. Last time, we talked about this a little bit, and my recommendation to you was a $15 overdraft limit with no meal thereafter. And it felt a little bit weighty. It felt a little bit like a whole lot of responsibility to be taking on myself without any other real input. So I took it to the DAT committee, and the DAT committee had some comments about it. Some were productive and some were not so productive, but DAT committee and our discussions with it, and it was probably a good 30-minute discussion at the DAT, They recommended a $10 overdraft limit per student with an alternate meal being provided for students who have exceeded that $10 limitation. So just as a refresher where we're going with this, the meal charge policy does not affect the students who are qualified for free and or reduced lunches. Those students still get the benefits of their free or reduced meal based on their application with accordance with the summer feeding or the National School Lunch Program. So those students are not affected by this. These are our students who do not qualify or do not fill out the application for the free and reduced meal program. At any point, the student there are certain automatic qualifiers that a student can have. If they're receiving other benefits, food stamps, the like, if they're receiving those benefits, they're directly certified for the child nutrition program, never having to fill out an application. So those students that are already receiving some sort of food assistance will still receive that assistance even without filling out the application. So at this point, we're talking those students and individuals who are above those income limitations. State of Texas requires that if we have an account or a program that allows students to charge money on their account, they must be able to overdraw that account while we make attempts to get in contact with parents or guardians and put funds back on that account to put them back in good standing. The one main item that received really overwhelming approval in the DAC committee was closing the loophole that we currently have that allows students to bring cash when their account is negative and buy snacks or a la carte items in the food service line. So that is the one recommendation that was very well received within DAT. So really at this point, the request or the consideration for you would be to approve the 18-19 meal charge policy, to authorize an alternate meal for students whose accounts are $10 or more overdrawn, and also prohibit the sale of a la carte and snack items when an account is negative.
Mr. Colton,
Yes,
were you
ma'am.
able to analyze why all of a sudden we were $14,000 overdrawn?
So in reaching out with some of our cafeteria managers, I know there's been no additional communications to people to let them know that, hey, we've got a different meal charge policy than it was the previous year. Our meal charge policy really resides on our district website with child nutrition. And so my understanding at this point is we had more faculty and staff members or faculty and staff whose students were taking advantage of this policy or abusing this policy, as the case may be. So my understanding is that the explosion in the amount that were negative account balances are really due to people finding out that loophole, finding out that we're not going to cut them off, we're going to keep serving them that meal, and just abusing that for the scope of the year.
Will you clarify, you said DAT, no, I'm sure not everyone here knows what
Yes, sir,
DAT stands
sorry.
for.
That's the district advisory team. It's made up of people from campuses, be they administrators, be they teachers, be they paraprofessionals. It's also made up of other community members, parents, grandparents, community leaders, if you will, and it meets, 5 or 6 times a year, and it's about 60 members, give or take. So it's a pretty good cross-section of our community.
I think we originally talked about it was going to be a $15.
Yes, sir.
And then DAT decided 10 would be better.
Yes, sir.
And my question is, are we sure that the kids that need food are not filling out the forms? I have done a little bit of research and have found out that actually an adult can fill out the forms for them if there's a issue. Have we, the
Absolutely.
administrators and counselors and everybody know that and are filling out forms for the kids that
Yeah.
would qualify?
Where we have reason to suspect someone may need additional food assistance, we do try to do the legwork for them. Some issues that do come up is pride. Some people are prideful and rather not take advantage of that benefit. And then also, there's a random verification requirement. And so when some students, when the information is filled out on their behalf and they get pulled for the random verification,
Right.
they don't ever respond to it because they were not aware that an application had been filed on their behalf. And so at that point, we then have to deny those students and change their status from qualifying to not.
Okay, so the $14,000 that we were over last year, that was just because of people getting or having large balances? Is that the feeling I'm getting?
That would be my general surmise. Now, in years past, we've also had businesses and church organizations that have chipped in to pay off some of these delinquent balances. Not saying that that didn't happen again this year, but that could also be, it may be a difference in giving on that end that helped cover some of those balances in previous years. But my understanding this year, the majority of the increase in our delinquent balances was faculty and staff students who otherwise would not qualify just based off of their income from the district, taking advantage of that loophole to get that extra meal.
Oh, so it's faculty and staff students?
That's my understanding. When I go back and ask child nutrition, their observations from the policy and their observations of people taking advantage of it.
Right.
One scenario that's come up was for us to just take it out of their paycheck. Well, we legally can't do that. We have to have their authorization to do a payroll deduction out of their account. So.
Okay, well, my concern is that we have many students that are food insecure, and we need to do more, and I'd like to see us study ways to do more to help those students who are food insecure, because that is a real issue in our district. I've known this for years. I checked today, and we have 400 backpacks that go home to elementary students and junior high students. I checked with the treasurer of my Student in Need Fund, and last year we gave $2,500 in food tickets to families. So I really think we need to be very careful with our food insecure students, and that's my concern.
Okay.
I'd like to add a personal observation here, and I'll be real short. Throw myself under the bus here in front of the whole community. My daughter was overdrawn 2 different times this year at school, over $40. Nobody told me. I know a lot of people check the internet, and that's not Clay Schoolfield. I don't have time to do that. They had a check the next day. The money is not the issue. But the question is, are we following through? Because I have a 5th grade daughter who's doing this, whose mind does not work to circumvent paying for her lunch. And she has a parent that'll write a check. So there's something getting lost in the mix there somewhere.
I know we relied on cafeteria managers and teachers reaching out to parents, especially through the Christmas, January, February time. After spring break, I do know that we started sending certified letters.
This was after spring break.
Okay.
I never received a certified letter.
Okay. I will definitely look into that one for you.
Well, one hidden benefit with this $10 cutoff is you address it quickly. In other words, if you're getting cut off at $10, you're gonna hopefully address that for the people that are able to before it gets out of hand. You know, if it gets to be hundreds of dollars, some people can't recover from that. So hopefully a hidden benefit of this will be that they catch it while it's low and able to address it.
Yes, sir.
I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Calden, just to be clear, the child nutrition program, even with the $14,000 hit, will still be a net positive this year, correct?
So one of the fun things when you participate in the National School Lunch Program, child nutrition doesn't absorb this cost. The district absorbs this cost. So child nutrition is not authorized to write off a bad debt. So the district will be covering the $14,000 total, Ms. Kriegel, was about in the middle of April. At this point, at the end of the year, it's over $15,000, so the district will be cutting a check to the Child Nutrition Fund. To answer your question, yes, sir, they will be positive.
Yeah, they will be very positive.
Actually, no, sir, they won't, because we just spent some money for high school cafeteria equipment.
Oh, that's right. That's
so
good.
They actually, which is good, because they needed to spend that excess fund balance. So this year, if you look at their financials, they will be negative, but it was a planned negative. They need to be negative this year to get us back in compliance with that program.
Otherwise, we'd have lost
Otherwise,
that money.
yes, sir, we'll be just fine.
And I think just to summarize the comments made by Mr. Schoolfield and Ms. Kriegel, one, the safeguards in place for kids that are economically disadvantaged. Obviously, I don't think anyone on this board or in this room wants to see a kid go without a meal, so I'm glad that there will be a meal in place for a kid every day. You had mentioned before a cheese or a meat sandwich. I'm sure all my kids would prefer a cheese sandwich. Is it possible to do a cheese or meat sandwich?
Honestly, because of the requirements for meal content, it more than likely will be a cheese sandwich, yes,
A
sir.
cheese sandwich, because it's just too many calories to go with.
Too much sodium and too many calories to go into the meat
Okay,
sandwiches.
so that's beyond our control.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And then I would certainly some sort of warning system, maybe beforehand, as the account starts getting low.
Yes, sir.
It'd be nice. And I don't know if we can do that via an app or an email, or even a Remind 101 to a parent, just maybe when they hit a balance of $2 or $3, so we know there's only 2 or 3 meals left on that account.
Yes, sir.
That would be great. That way, I'd hate for a kid to go to school and be embarrassed, and then we tell them after the fact, hey, today you were overdrawn and your child got a cheese sandwich. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So if we could give them something in advance, that would be great.
Okay.
Mr. Collins, how much will we be charging for the lunch and for the breakfast if the student is receiving one of the alternative meals?
So our options at this point for a reimbursable meal, meaning we get to claim reimbursement and get the 30-cent reimbursement from the federal government on these alternative meals, the price is going to be about $1.50. And so in looking at the meal makeup, you're talking, even at elementary, you're talking about a whole cup of food, a fruit, you're talking about 4 slices of cheese, you're talking about 2 slices of bread, you're talking about a water or a milk option that's going to be in there. So the district's not looking, right now, we're giving a pared down version of the main entree for $1.75. So with the new requirements from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, that's not going to be an option next year because that's going to be overtly identifying these students. So having the alternate meal that is on the line every day, any student can get it, will prevent that from being overt identification, but at a reasonable price of about $1.50.
And that's a good point too. I'm glad you brought that up. So no charge account will ever go beyond $10. The district will absorb all the costs of the free lunch after that. So if somebody decides all year, let them eat the cheese sandwich, their account will essentially be a negative.
Their account's
deficit
going to
of
be at $10 and we're going to be eating the difference. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I got confused in all that. So are they going to have a pared down version of what's being offered, or are they going to have the cheese sandwich?
The pared down version is what we're doing this year. And so next year for the 18-19 school year, it'll be the cheese sandwich, it'll be some fruit, and it'll be water or a milk option.
Then you have to have a vegetable too.
Yes, for the reimbursable meal.
Thank you.
Any other
Paul?
questions or discussion?
I'm not sure what I did, but I do get an email when my child's balance is low, so I don't remember how I signed up for that, but, so there is an option. I guess we just need to educate folks that
So
they can
that's
do that as well.
Goal number 1, our first line of education is going to be when parents are coming back to, meet the teacher night and or any other campus informational sessions, to make them aware that we do have the software capability. Every student has an account. You can go online, you can register your information to your student and set up your own low balance notifications. If you want to be notified at $5, you can. If you want to be notified at 40 cents, you can as well. So they're completely customizable, but on our end, we need to make sure that those communications are happening. Honestly, probably at the point where a student can't get a meal the next day without being overdrawn. So if that limit is $2.60 for a lunch, then anytime you're at $2.50 or less, we need to make sure that we're making those communications.
Any further discussion? Okay, at this time I'll entertain a motion to approve meal charge policy. Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve meal charge policy per staff recommendation.
Okay, motion by Mr. Rogers, second
Second.
by Ms. Starnader. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
No.
We have 6 for, 1 against, with Ms. Kriegel voting in opposition. Motion carries 6-1. Okay.
Next
Consider-
item tonight, Board, is for your approval and consideration of a technology purchase for the Wildman STEAM Academy. Our CH Local, which is our purchasing policy, requires that purchases over $50,000 be presented for your consideration and approval. Typically, these items will be located in the consent agenda with the monthly financial reports as purchase orders for your approval. The purchase tonight is $84,372 to Apple for the purchase of 210 iPad devices. It'll be 5 devices per classroom, which is comparable to what every other elementary campus has. 2 carts of 30 devices, and 5 devices for the special classes, special education, music, art, and PE, and then 10 additional devices for classroom growth. So it is our recommendation tonight for approval of this PO for $84,372.
I just have one question. We're saying where Wyman is getting these 2 new carts, and that's wonderful. But what about Coleman? Is Coleman also going to be under?
Coleman's going to
the new
have
carts?
technology. Some of that technology will be redistributed from what the other junior highs already have as their, so we'll make sure that it's equitable on those campuses.
Okay, so Coleman will have redistributed devices.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
The only thing I want to clarify is additional expenditures outside of the budget, and I may not be saying that right, and you may need to educate me. This isn't a budgeted item. This is out of fund balance. This would be an additional. In other words, we meet at some point and approve a budget. This wasn't part of an approved budget, correct?
Yes, sir. So this wasn't part of the original plan. You're absolutely correct. Within the course and scope of our budget, though, there are some accounts that are there for, we'll call it rainy day. Something like this. Honestly, this year, we set aside about $1 million to $1.5 million, depending on where we went off in some other accounts. So like if energy consumption is less than we originally budgeted, which it was this year, then we can pad that $1 million to $1.5 million, make it closer to $1.5 million. All this money was set aside this year for the Wildman transition. So at any point, we don't know immediately how much it's going to, when we went into the fiscal year, didn't know how much we were going to need for technology, how much we were going to need to renovate the building per se, how much we were going to need for all the individual components. But in the grand scheme of things, we set aside money, about $1 million to $1.5 million for the renovation of this building and the outfitting of it for a new elementary.
We're working within the expenditures of the approved budget by the board. So we're not going into fund balance and adding money to the budget. Does that answer your question?
That's just what I wanted to clarify. I don't want to give the perception of, we just have an open checkbook and whatever expenditure PO comes across the table, we're going to rubber stamp approve it. So it's probably unreasonable for me to think that there won't ever be expenditures outside of the budget. So I just wanted clarification on that.
And so to finish that thought real fast, the one place you will see that is in the budget amendments. When you see a budget amendment, it will tell you at the bottom of that page whether it's adding to the overall expenditure plan of the district for the year or just a rearrangement of funds within existing authorized budget.
And it has nothing to do with, Ms. Sautier's iPads. That's not the point. I just wanted to make sure we just didn't create that environment, that culture of just, approving every little thing that come across us.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve action item number 4.
Action item 4.4.
4, yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Congratulations, Ms. Sautier. Number 5.
All right, tonight, board, ask for your consideration. Sorry, Mr. President. Ask for your consideration on the pay scale for paraprofessionals. We did make a couple of changes to some positions. We moved some positions to step 3, who are instructional paraprofessionals, who essentially operate independent within their classrooms leading instruction. We did increase the starting pay 2% for all steps and move step 1 to $10 an hour to make it a little bit more of a reasonable wage. And then we extended out the maximum pay step for steps 2 through 6 to be more competitive with our surrounding districts. In addition, on the bus driver pay scale, we're moving the starting pay, or requesting to move starting pay to $13 an hour after 1 year of service, and an additional $1 an hour increase after that second year of service. This gets us more in line with our neighboring districts and makes us more competitive when hiring. Move the midpoint on the bus driver pay scale to $19 an hour and the maximum hiring pay to $25 an hour, again, to make us more competitive with our surrounding districts, because that's one of our hard-to-fill positions, is find some good quality bus drivers.
Any questions or discussion?
Make the motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kriegel, second by Mr. McCutcheon to approve the changes in the pay scale. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Curriculum and academics. You, Ms. Blaylock.
Good evening, Board. We want to continue our conversation tonight that started as part of our long-range planning committee when we began the discussion of moving toward a full-day pre-kindergarten program. We are very excited that we will ensure that that happens in August of 2018. So we're in the process of publicizing that and letting our families know that a much-desired lengthier program will be available to them. As part of our discussion on campuses throughout the district this year when we were going for bond discussion, one of the things that became evident to us is that our employees very much want access to the pre-kindergarten program if we have available seats to them. The state currently requires that we provide pre-kindergarten students that meet one of 7 eligibility criteria that program. It does not require us to provide seats to non-qualifying students. So in Texas Education Code, it states what all of those 7 criteria are, and as we enroll families, they go through that process of verifying that they meet one of those criteria. But even so, as we're enlarging that building and increasing our classrooms, we do anticipate space available for our families. That is very much something that many of the districts around us are providing to their employees as a perk of being a part of the district. And it makes us be able to offer and expand the students that are within our program. So as we began to explore this, some things became present to us as we sent out a survey to our staff. We currently have a 4-year-old program at our daycare. It is very much loved and adored by our parents, and those parents that are utilizing it want the opportunity to continue to have their students in that program. They get through that program at the cost of the daycare. They get free lunch, breakfast, lunch, and snack. They have nap time, and they also receive childcare after school and on in-service days. That is not something that we would be able to provide for every student moving over into the pre-K program if they were going to attend Turner Pre-Kindergarten Academy. And so we, through working with Ms. Clark and Mr. Boshier, who's over our daycare program, have been able to kind of find a happy medium that will meet the needs of employees that were not able to get their students into their child into the 4-year-old program, as it can only hold 15 students in the daycare, and we have more employees than that have 4-year-olds that would like them to be within our district. So if we were able to continue offering seats at our pre-K, daycare 4-year-old class, at their tuition rate that they have set, and then outside of that, within our district, we would be able to offer our available seats to current employees on a first-come, first-served basis. We would be able to then really meet the needs of all of our employees. The main concern for employees that would be seeking seats in the pre-K academy side is after-school care. So as a district, we would ensure that the tuition set under your guidance would then be able to provide that after-school care for them. They would then be responsible, though, for their own breakfast and lunch fees, as well as their own child care on in-service days. In my conversation with several employees who would be in that situation, they said that would all be fine with them because that very much so want their child to be in that program at the Pre-Kindergarten Academy. In speaking with Ms. Clark, they do not feel like that would challenge their classroom, as they have a waiting list for 4-year-olds currently that they can't fit into their classroom. And so the state does mandate what a limitation on half-day tuition and full-day tuition can be. For a year, the state has Waxahachie set for $7,343 as the maximum. We are proposing what we feel is under a fair market value of possibly $350 per month taken out of paychecks over a 12-month cycle, which would be $4,200 a year. So it would be far below what the state's requirement is for us to be able to offer a tuition for our programs. In the future, should we approve this tonight, we will also need to come back in July and edit our admissions policy for pre-kindergarten to state clearly who would have access to that. I began attempting to work on that with our TASB representative, but she has been out of her office on vacation. So I apologize that we were not able to update and edit that policy for tonight's meeting, but we would have it at our next meeting in July, so we can ensure that we have sound policy and practice in place, and everyone understands how you would gain admission into that program. Currently, if we were to exceed the number of seats we have available, the state does mandate that any student who qualifies for that program must have a seat. So then we would then need to be prepared to continue to expand our staff. The state, under the high quality pre-K requirements, is 11 to 1, 11 students to 1 professional. We are following that in all of our classrooms, so all of our rooms have an adult certified teacher and an adult paraprofessional in the room with students at all times. So thinking of, with that in mind, a combination of teacher and paraprofessional, it would be 17 students that we would need. We would then be able to recoup that cost at $350 per student. If we did not meet the 11 to 1, we then would not have to comply with having both of those adults in the classroom. At this time, I will say Ms. Frazier reported to me that enrollment at our pre-kindergarten roundup was a little bit lower than it has been in the past. We don't anticipate that that's going to be the case come August, because many of our families will sign up for those seats in August. But a rock solid prediction of exactly how many seats are available will be forthcoming as we continue to enroll students starting on July the 30th, as I mentioned to you in the study session. What questions can I answer for the board at this time?
No questions?
So I have a question. Okay, so the ones that qualify, I mean, they have to give them seats first, right? As far as pre-K.
Yeah, we have to just ensure that they have a seat. They don't have to receive them first. We just have to ensure that should we exceed the number of seats that we have, and we are expanding pre-K services this year. So we have already approved 6 additional certified classrooms for that campus. So we just have to understand that in the fall, should we exceed that, we may have to add an additional individual at that campus. We're not anticipating that to be the result, but that is reality of this decision.
So to summarize, we would be offering pre-K for our staff at a fee. I mean, just like if they paid for their child to go to pre-K somewhere else.
Yes, ma'am. And I will tell you that at this time of the year, as this has kind of evolved, we know many of our employees currently for this school year have already secured a deposit with their current child care provider. So we may see a reduction in that for this school year. And that will be helpful, knowing that we're looking to find some trends in enrollment for pre-kindergarten. It wasn't intentional, but just the timing of how all of the information was collected, many of our staff said, I really need to know by the end of May. So we may be out of that time frame, unfortunately, for some of them.
And Ms. Stardater, full-day pre-K is kind of new territory for us. Hopefully, depending on how much room we have available in the building, we may look at expanding it to the greater community as well at some point. But again, anyone who's not economically disadvantaged, it would be fee-based.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Blaylock.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mealich, Facilities and Construction.
Thank you, Mr. President and Board. I tell you, anybody looking at college tuition, that pre-K tuition looks really good. Okay, first item is discussion and consideration to approve delivery method for North Grove Elementary School and submit an RFQ for architectural services and RFP for construction manager services. As we've been discussing over the past several months, first step in the delivering a building product is determining the delivery method. We've gone through several competitive sealed bids, design build, competitive bids. The two we want to focus on are construction manager at risk, construction manager at agent, and that's what we've been discussing the past several months. At risk, the basic is we have a construction manager. They manage all the contracts. A lot of the risk falls on them in the future, so we have one point of contact for the building project. There's several advantages and disadvantages. We have a competitive guaranteed maximum price. Competitive pricing for subcontractor. We have a team concept. We're working as one. One of the things is there could be a premium set that we absorb at the onset with construction manager at risk. A construction manager agent, this is the current delivery method we're employing with the high school project. We're managing over 70 different contracts. So that falls on me, it falls on Mr. Calden, the business department, for those pay apps that happen monthly. It's arduous for the school district. So otherwise, construction manager at risk, they're handling those contracts. They're making the pay applications. We make one pay application. So the disadvantages are there's no contractual obligation with the construction manager has with the subcontractors. All that lies with us. There's no guaranteed maximum price. The owner manages multiple contracts, like we said. There's no single point of responsibility. It is the district versus the subcontractors. We do have we select based on qualifications, which we would do with construction manager at risk as well. We select owner, architect, CM, and subcontractors. With at risk, we select architect and construction manager, which is what we're talking about in this agenda item as well. So with that, it's staff's recommendation that we do construction manager at risk. Construction manager agent has worked well for the high school project, but I would easily say 98% of all construction, school construction projects in the state of Texas is construction manager at risk. It absolves a lot of the responsibility, a lot of the liability, thank you, for districts for that one point of contact. So it is with that the staff would recommend moving forward with construction manager at risk, as well as submitting a request for qualifications for architectural services and a request for proposal for construction manager services as well. With that, I'll answer any questions related to this agenda item.
Any questions?
Why was it attractive to go CMA for the high school?
That's a very good question. No, I think it was the board at the time wanted a lot more transparency. I think they wanted the flexibility as far as cost savings and things like that. It's a very odd method to go with. I think far exceeds the number of construction manager at risk than agent.
Yeah, and I agree. And Mr. Mealy hit on a couple of points. The other is that the construction company we had used for Lumpkin Stadium, Gallagher, is a CMA. And I spoke to Vaughn Gallagher today. I'm not sure that they would actually be involved or submit a proposal on a CMR. And so I think the board had a level of comfort going with Gallagher Construction at the time, and they are a CMA.
Any other questions? Okay, this time I'll entertain a motion for delivery method, North Grove Elementary School.
Mr. President, I move we approve the construction manager at risk delivery method for North Grove Elementary School.
Motion by Dr. Langley, is there a second? Second. Second by Ms. Starnader. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. Second agenda item is consideration and possible action to approve owner's representative architect for design build delivery method for the new agri-science facility. As you know, NA Company is our design build contractor for the agri-science facility. It is incumbent upon the school district to select an architect to oversee the project, and that architect makes sure that design adheres to current building code, TEA guidelines regarding education facilities, review and recommendations on the proposed construction schedule. It just basically gives us another set of eyes, a certified set of eyes, stamped set of eyes that we'll be able to utilize and look over that design build project. We met with several city representatives as well as school district representatives. What you're seeing on the screen is the new school site. That's the high school. You see the athletic fields. What is envisioned is that the agri-science facility, would go back here. That this is 287 bypass, 287 bypass right here, but the agri-science facility would go behind these practice fields right here. So it is my recommendation that we utilize Corgan Architects. They have a flat fee of $5,000 to utilize for our representative for design build. They've done a tremendous job at the high school, and if there's any questions from the board regarding this, I'll entertain them now.
It's my understanding they were significantly lower than some other.
Yes, sir. Yes, yeah, by $25,000.
And let me clarify that. The board previously retained Motla Architecture, authorized the superintendent to execute the contract. We could not come to terms with Motla on the details of the contract specifically, and therefore we're asking your approval to engage with another architect.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? May I have a motion?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve Corgan as the owner's representative architect for the design build delivery method for the new agri-science facility.
Motion by Mr. McCutcheon. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Schofield. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
And I do want to recognize and thank Steve Halsey with Corgan Architecture, who's with us here tonight. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the good work you've done at the high school as well.
At this time, we will go into closed session according to section 55.001 et sec. It is now 7:55.
Ms. Robbins. update on June 25th. We will have a meeting regarding safety and security. Just to update the public, the board authorized administration to go forward and analyze a guardian plan. We are looking at the potential to implement an amended board policy CKC local, which could authorize a guardian plan. However, in between the time that the board asked us to consider a guardian plan, the governor has asked the legislature to provide additional authority under the education code for school marshals who have 80 hours of training, who have passed mental fitness, to not just have a firearm in a secure, locked compartment, but also have the authority to carry on their person a firearm, much like a level 3 security officer, one that's been commissioned by DPS. At this point in time, school districts can hire a level 2 security officer, but don't have authority to hire a level 3 security officer with a firearm on their person, like colleges have that authority in the states. The governor has requested the legislature give school districts that authority, and we're moving forward with our own security team to have the ability, should that authority change, to be ready on day one with school marshals. And that will also be up to board discussion, board consideration, along with other items that have been recommended by the district crisis management team, and items that were a part recently of a poll that went to not just our staff, but then also to our parents and stakeholders in the district. So I just wanted to give you that brief update. Can answer any questions you might have, but that will be our topic of discussion on June 25th at a public meeting 2 Mondays from now. And if there aren't any questions, we can then, I will certainly move forward with the human resources recommendation. That is the personnel report at section 6A1. At this time, we are asking the board, this is the largest employment group, the largest recommendation we've made in the 4 years now that I've been with the district. We have 40 new professionals coming to WISD within the personnel report and the addendum. We have 9 transfers of existing paraprofessionals and professionals taking on new positions. That's 49 new folks with just this personnel report. To date, we will have hired 69 new teachers, other professionals and administrators to the district this hiring season. Tonight, I know we have with us Audrey Thomas. She is our recommended candidate for special ed director. She comes to us from Arlington ISD as a special education coordinator, worked with Ms. Chappelle as Ms. Chappelle's right hand in Mansfield ISD. I believe we had a Don Casas, there he is, recommended to you as your high school principal. We have Derek Zant back there, recommended to you as your Finley junior high principal. Stephanie Foster as Turner pre-K principal. We have Monica Bray, recommended to you tonight as the assistant principal at Clift Elementary. Karen Polk, we have with us tonight, recommended as the assistant principal at Wildman. I don't believe we have Matt Queen, recommended to you tonight as our assistant principal at the high school. And I hope I didn't leave anybody out of our professionals that were recommended tonight. Normally, I would say amazingly, I would do my best to honor all of you who are here. We're excited to have them, and so I just ask that the folks here in the room and the remaining 49 professionals that you approve the personnel report and addendum is recommended to you by your superintendent.
Are there any questions or discussion? This time I entertain a motion to approve the personnel report.
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
Motion by Ms. Starnader,
I'll second.
second by Dr. Langley. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay.
Abstain.
Abstain. Motion carries 6-0 with 1 abstention being Ms. Kriegel. Congratulations.
Congratulations to all the administrators in the room.
Okay, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Board. The first item up for discussion tonight is the assignment of trustees to committees by the Board President, and I'll turn that over to Mr. Autry.
Trustees have been informed of the committees that they were assigned to. There's still a couple that are going to be fluid that may be changing, and I believe those will all be posted on the district's website by the middle of the end of this week once I get all the information to Ms. Bridges.
Thank you. Also with us tonight is Doug Witt. He is our financial advisor from Samco, and he'll be presenting the plan of finance for the bond sale.
Okay, good evening. It's good to be back. Again, my name's Doug Witt with Samco Capital, serving the district as a financial advisor. Congratulations on your bond election. It's very good to be here tonight. I do have a presentation. You're pointing at someone to pull it up. No, I tell you what, I can work off of hard copies, if that would be better. Okay?
Thank you, Doug.
We're here primarily tonight to answer any questions, provide this bond program update. And so again, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me at any time, but wanted to give you an update. There's no board action tonight. We wanted to preview potential board action at a future meeting date. So with that, when you flip to page 1, right after the cover page, at the very top says review of bond election parameters. Of course, the voters approved 23 million of bonds for the construction of an elementary school. It requires no INS tax rate increase. We're using conservative projections for the bond model. Tax-based growth is well surpassed what we used pre-election. The interest rate assumption that we used pre-election was like 4.25%, and you'll see rates from me in a moment where we're below that. And of course, the district has approved a tax ratification election in the past. It's been a part of our bond program dating back 2 elections prior to this one. And so continued planned use of that, at least in the short term, as a part of that bond election program. On the next page, page 3 at the bottom right corner, it says most recent bond ratings. We will have these reviewed shortly. But the district does have a AAA bond rating based upon the permanent school fund guarantee. That is, of course, the highest credit quality that's out there in the United States market, which because of that high credit rating, it means we're able to borrow at the lowest interest rates among any municipal issuers in the United States. The second and third bullet point is your underlying ratings by Moody's and Fitch ratings, AA3 category, AA minus. These are very high categories for districts like yourself. And when you look at what the analysts cite, strong financial performance with healthy liquidity and reserves. The primary function of the district, your finances and how healthy they are, is what allows you to be in the AA category, and they state that. You also obviously have a growing tax base. It grew at over 9% in this past year. With proximity to the DFW Metroplex here in Texas, we have a very robust economy in the Dallas area. We have a very robust economy, and it's reflected in what we're able to do in our school district finances. The last item there, don't feel bad about this. It's in every presentation I give of any district that's growing. Because we are a state that requires our voters to approve through election bonded indebtedness, and that's how we finance facilities. That's not true in other places like Michigan and Oklahoma and so forth. They have a different setup that they utilize. But again, had another presentation earlier tonight for a district over near Fort Worth that's about the same size as this, slightly bigger, that's growing. Same exact statement. You can get it in any district in the state of Texas of what that says there. But we do finance our facilities with voted bonds, and if you're a growing district that needs to build new facilities, you're going to have quite a few bonds outstanding. On the next page is a look at our interest rate market. It's page 4. This is a national index of municipal bonds. It is again, weekly index that comes out of a pool of bonds that are monitored throughout the United States. But the picture does tell 1,000 words, if you will. To the far right, we're at a 3.88% on this particular index. The average runs across the middle in blue, that horizontal bar, average 4.33%. And then, of course, the peak is in October of 2008 up at the top, and the historic low is 2.8% in July of 2016. That was following the Brexit vote, which really shocked the markets at that time. And it was a very temporary period that we were down below that. The bottom line is the two black horizontal bars, we typically have an index between 3.25% and 5.5%, and we're at a 388. We're well below averages. We're not record lows, but we have a very solid market that we're working with. Keep in mind that the Federal Open Market Committee will be meeting this week and talking about raising short-term interest rates. They have been very transparent in that process with their intent to continue to raise the federal funds rate. The federal funds rate is a short-term rate. Sometimes our medium and long-term bond rates actually come down in the midst of that. But everything that we're expecting is a short-term interest rate coming up. That's what the market has priced into it. So when you go to the next page and you look at the current bond market conditions for our permanent school fund AAA rated school districts, you can see that the approximate yields to maturity range from 1.8 on a very short bond up to 4.15% on our 30th maturity. And again, we ran the numbers at a flat 4.25, and you're going to be well below that, so you're going to be under budget with respect to your bond payments from this election. Okay? On the next page, I put this taxable value history slide in for you. And again, this is bottom right corner, page 6, taxable value history at the top. In 2006, 2007, you had $2.2 billion of tax base. It's been steadily increasing with the exception of 10-11 and 11-12, where it was very modest and very stable there through 12 and 13. And then below the black line there, you can see over the past 5 years, you grew at 1.4%, 5.6%, 8.5%, 7%, and 9.4%. And this last year, you're going to grow approaching 10% in your taxable value. Now, pre-election, we used something along the lines of 3% growth over a 5-year period, where you're getting 9% growth in 1 year. So again, this is an area where you are way ahead of schedule for us in your bond program. On the next page, page 7, is a look at your principal and interest payment profile. Of course, the bars in blue is your outstanding principal and interest. And then the yellow is layering on top of that the $23 million in basically just level payment stream over that period of time. So we're going to have one step up in 2019, and then you're going to be very level with a small drop off in 2027, and then a bigger drop off in 2038. You're going to have very flat bond payments. At the same time, your taxable value is increasing. So if you'll flip with me to the next page, what that means for this district is the commitment of that general fund transfer that you've had is going to diminish. It's the yellow bars there. You're going to see that that's going to diminish over the next 2 to 3 years. This is based on 5% growth for 3 years. You grew at 10% this year, so you may grow quicker and be out of the use of that money in a short period of time. But it shows that instead of having to use that money over a long period of time, because we have level payments, every year that tax-based growth, the transfer from the TRE is going to diminish, and in a couple of years you'll be completely out of that. And that's what I'm illustrating with this payment stream. Any questions on that so far? If not, the next page is an overview of the timing. I will point out that this is very preliminary, but there are a couple of key dates. We're here today to talk about the plan of finance and schedule of events. We will be working with the rating agencies to update those bond ratings. We do not expect anything that would be in negative territory. If anything, it would be positive from there. Your tax base is outpacing the growth that was assumed. Interest rates are low and all the things that I mentioned before. We will receive in the 4th bullet point the permanent school fund letter on June 21st. And this schedule contemplates the very fastest that a school district with a May election could move. We would be looking at having ratings in place on June 21st and board action on June 25th. And then the dates down below that are going to be subject to change going forward. But at your next meeting, we would be potentially asking you, if you want it on your agenda, for you to adopt the order authorizing the issuance of those bonds, and you're then delegating authority to the administration to complete the sale and issuance of those bonds as we can proceed under the law. And so that would be the board action that you would be having on a future agenda. We put it on the June 25th. If that's acceptable to you, you get to make that determination. This schedule, again, could change under circumstances. It is absolutely the fastest we can move, and we may or may not be able to, pending the outcome of the election period. And then the last thing that I'll point out on the very last slide is the approaching optional redemption dates. The district has been in the refunding business, refinancing business, if you will, over several years, where we refund existing bonds at lower interest rates to provide interest cost savings to the district in your bond and INS fund budget. Going forward, we have very limited opportunity until about August of 20, where you have 16.9 million. You have a small amount that's currently callable, but again, very small. The 565,000 is another small amount. That's not available until August of 2020. And then we get into 2021. So there's a couple of things I want to point out. We are monitoring any opportunities to provide savings for refundings, which you've done in the past. We simply don't have those coming up in the near future, but we do monitor those. And one other thing that I want to bring up as part of this slide, the last federal tax legislation that was passed, lowering the corporate tax rate, what it did to us is it eliminated our ability to refund in advance of a call date. We now have to wait till that call date to do any refundings, and these are the dates that are on the forward-looking calendar for you going forward. So that's the last slide that I wanted to point out. So with that, again, any questions I can answer for you this evening? No action is required, but if there was some reason that you didn't not feel comfortable with us putting that action item on a future agenda, now would be a good time to discuss any of those concerns.
Are there any questions for Mr. Witt?
We'll be voting on the 25th.
I doubt
Possibly,
it.
we'll see.
It's a pretty tight.
Seeing that agenda.
Likely it'll probably be a July agenda. Yeah.
And again, we can discuss this in a workshop as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug. We appreciate you being here as always. If you get a chance before you leave tonight, if you'll visit with Mr. Abenshine, so he can update you on a few things.
Yes, you bet.
Thank you, trustees. Item B3 under the superintendent's report is action to amend board policy FMH local. Currently, that policy does not allow for administrator discretion for a student who has not met local and state requirements for graduation to walk across the graduation stage. This is a policy issue, and the decision is the pleasure of the board.
Are there any questions? It's my understanding that right now, there is no discretion. That they either meet the requirements and they get to participate in the activities, and if they don't, they don't, whether they are actually receiving a diploma or not.
Yeah, they do. They don't receive the diploma. They are not supposed to walk if they have not passed all state standardized testing requirements and met all course requirements from the district.
Dr. Glenn, I'm a little concerned. Isn't the state looking at doing away with the committees for tomorrow? I mean, for next year, I've heard that they're doing away with that committee assignment and everything.
Could you be more specific?
Well, you know, right now they have to, I believe, pass 5 tests. The committee can decide that there's discretion on 2.
That's already in place, and so they can be put on the minimum plan and pass 3 of the exams instead of 5.
Okay, that's the new policy.
Yeah, but this again, that has no bearing on FMH.
Right.
What FMH is if they don't meet state requirements. So
Right.
wherever the state puts that requirement, if
Right.
they fail to meet that requirement
Right.
or the local district requirement, they're not supposed to walk.
It's basically allowing discretion to allow a child to participate in commencement activities, whether or not they're actually receiving a diploma. Am I correct? Dr. Glenn?
That is correct, if the board wants to amend the policy.
Okay, I'll make the motion to amend the policy. My concern is that it's used very carefully and not.
Will you state the motion, please?
I'll make the motion that we amend the policy, let's see, to allow a student that has not met all of the requirements to walk across the stage and not receive, without their, they will not receive a diploma. Does that make sense?
Did you get that, Ms. Bridges?
You want there to be discretion?
With superintendent or designee discretion?
With the superintendent or the designee's discretion.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McCutcheon. Any other discussion?
I'd like to ask superintendent and administration, what's the positives of having this discretion? Can you give me an example or a situation in which this might be used?
I think there's always a gray area. Right now, it's a black and white policy. So if they do not meet either the state requirements or local requirements, they don't walk across the stage. I think we had an issue come up this year where a young lady, given the circumstances, and won't disclose those. And so so I received the call about, would it be possible for the board to review this?
Okay.
To me, I think it gives encouragement for the one that's actually not graduating to go back and finish in summer.
They still won't get their diploma. It just gives them the opportunity to walk.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 6-1 with Mr. Rogers voting in opposition.
Thank you. Just a reminder that we do have, the last item tonight is a reminder of our safety workshop. We'll be discussing school safety in depth. And currently, we have our EISO training, which is a mandatory state training on that date as well. We may look to actually bump that. I'll wait and have a discussion tomorrow with the board president, and we'll decide how much time we want to allot to that workshop. So other than that, that is all the business of the school district tonight. Board, thank you very much.
I have two things before we adjourn. One, I want to congratulate all our new administrators on their new employment tonight. And also, board and audience, Dr. Langley here is celebrating his 41st wedding anniversary tonight. So I want to tell Dr. Langley, congratulations. Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. McCutcheon.
A second.
Second by Dr. Langley. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.